Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. We're continuing our series reviewing the offseason of every NBA team. Today, we're getting into the Orlando Magic, Keith's adopted hometown. Keith, what are you thinking about Orlando? Not a team that's going to, contend for a championship anytime soon or anything like that, but the rebuild's coming along, and the number one pick certainly helped with that.
Yeah, for sure. It's people are more excited than they've been in a long time here. I think people were super into the team that made the playoffs a few years ago, but
Mm-hmm.
then that second playoff appearance happened in the bubble. So even though those games were played right down the road from the city of Orlando, it didn't really matter because it could have been played in your backyard like they were for me, and you still couldn't see them. So that was not exactly what people wanted. But yeah, the ability for this team to basically say, you know what, everything's got to go. Vooch is gone, Fournier's gone, Aaron Gordon's gone, and we're just going to start this whole thing over. And they did pretty good with it. I think people were, I want to say excited, but it was tempered excitement with last year's first rounders. Franz Wagner, everyone is super excited about. Jalen Suggs struggled and then he got injured, so that one there's a little less. But Markelle Fultz got back on the floor, so people are excited there. On the downside, Jonathan Isaac didn't play at all, so that's got people a little like, what's going on with this? But any like questions that were left of whether you should be excited or not wiped away when they picked Paolo Banchero, and then he looked great in summer league. So good that he only played 2 summer league games, and the Magic are like, we've seen enough. Put him in bubble wrap. See you in the fall. So yeah, I mean, this team is they picked a direction, and I think it looks pretty good right now. That direction that they've picked.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at kind of what they've done here, what they've got on their salary sheets right now, and I guess really we have to start with Paolo Banchero and Keith. I mean, one of the all-time best draft day swerves that we've
Yeah.
ever seen. I mean, it seemed like it was a lock that Banchero was going 3 to the Houston Rockets, and then next thing you know, there he is going off the board at number 1 to Orlando. The only thing that I still haven't figured out is why. Like, it was epic, incredible that they were able to do this. I'm not sure exactly what they benefit from it, but still, I mean, amazing in this day and age that they were able to keep it that quiet that they were actually taking Paulo number 1.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe the hope was Houston will panic and do a panic trade up to number 1, and here's a whole bunch of guys, but Houston seemed content, and I think in the end, I think all these teams made the right decisions to let's just stick where we are. As I've said multiple times before, but it's worth repeating. Paulo was number 1 on my board. It was not by a huge amount. I had him, Holmgren, and Smith all in the same tier. I thought they were all going to be really good. I just felt most certain Paolo Banchero would be good. The other two, I could see things going wrong. I think Banchero is just even if he doesn't hit maximum supreme upside, he's still going to be a really, really good NBA player. And the other two, I feel like there's the potential. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to be really good too. But yeah, I mean, and as you said, yeah, they kept it super quiet. It was only like in the last handful of hours before the draft that we even got the like, well, the Magic are still considering,
Right.
and that almost seemed like yeah, sure they are, right? It's almost like the Pelicans are still thinking maybe not Zion, and it's like okay, yeah,
Well,
right.
right.
But then what an hour or so before it was like they're gonna take Banchero, and it was like holy
And the
crap,
betting lines had changed earlier that day too, which I
yeah,
mean, somebody knew, but
somebody
yeah.
knew something.
Yep.
So but here it is. Now this salary sheet pretty clean. You don't have any players who make $20 million. We're gonna get into some of their other offseason stuff, but it was mostly they brought guys back. They didn't add anybody outside except for a couple rookies. So Banchero and then Caleb Houston, who's second round pick. He's not showing on here because his salary's so low. But he'll be there as well. But so in this situation, guys they re-signed. Gary Harris comes back, $13 million, second year, fully non-guaranteed. It's important that they gave him that second year fully non-guaranteed because they can trade him now. He can't block the trade or anything like that. They don't have no trade restrictions. They can move him. So in $13 million, if they keep him, it's fine. They like
Right.
Gary Harris. They thought he did a nice job with their young guards. There's still certainly injury questions within that grouping with Fultz, with Jalen Suggs, to some extent with Cole Anthony. So, and Gary Harris, it's not like Gary Harris is 35 years old and at the end of his career, he's 28. So, perfectly fine there. Then re-sign Mo Bamba. This one was a surprise.
Yeah, not what
It
we'd been
looked like
hearing.
yeah, it looked like he was gone. They inked Wendell Carter Jr. to the extension. You can see that a very good extension that starts this year, and it's as the Magic have been prone to do in extensions. It is a descending contract, so it goes down each year by about $1 million or so. But then they re-sign Bamba. But again, just like Gary Harris, it's a second year, fully non-guaranteed, so very tradable contract for Orlando at 10.3 million. And for what it's worth, Mo Bamba showed great improvement last year. Easily the best season he's had in the NBA. Played really, really well. Shot the ball well. He blocked shots. He rebounded better than he had thought. And then that was about it, other than Bol, who's making just $2.2 million, I believe it is. He's just off screen. I promise you he's there. But he, again, non-guaranteed second year, and that's just hey, let's see, because nobody saw him last year because he was injured all season. So that becomes a hey, let's see. And then if we go all the way back to the top, Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz. Isaac sounds like he's going to finally return to the court. He's coming back to a very different Magic team than the one we last saw him play on. That was in the bubble. So he's missed 2 full seasons now. That we have not seen him play. And then Markelle Fultz, he got back at the end of last season and looked really good physically. So this team, their salary sheet is clean. We got a bunch of good, young, interesting players. This is a fun team that I think is, they're doing this rebuild about as well as you can do it.
And I'll tell you what, with those salaries, with your guys that are, Gary Harris, the expirings, or the non-guaranteed in that second year, Mo Bamba. If Paolo hits and Markelle Fultz bounces back, Jonathan Isaac gives you another dimension, and suddenly you're looking a little bit better than you would have expected. You actually put yourself in a position where you could be a buyer. Now, I wouldn't expect this to be the case, but you could be a buyer out there at the trade deadline if things are looking even better for the Magic with those contracts because they are expiring. You can offer that relief there, in addition to the fact that they are serviceable players in Mo Bamba and Gary Harris. So I like the flexibility that they've built in there. Now, again, I'm not anticipating that the Magic suddenly find themselves in a spot where they want to go add win now pieces, but you do have some attractive salaries there to potentially put into a future deal at some point. And then plenty of youth to build around. I mean, my gosh, there's so many young players where you just look at it and say, hey, if this guy I'm not talking about pops off the screen. I'm not talking about has this meteoric rise, but just organically is a year older. I mean, you talk about Franz Wagner. The players like that just tend to get better year to year because that's what young players do. This team could be looking really, really good within the next few seasons.
Yeah, I think so. I think just out of staying patient and with the growth of what they have on the roster, they're going to develop into being a pretty good team here. I don't know that I'm planning working around a parade route.
Sure.
If I have to head downtown anytime within the next few years. But again, that flexibility gives them that opportunity where, all right, it's time to go add a major free agent. They can do that in the next couple of years because they're not sitting on any kind of really bad money. Jonathan Isaac, interesting situation with him. His contract, because he did not hit his games played markers, has now become partially guaranteed. Now, he's not going anywhere this year because it's still guaranteed for $16 million. But next season, if let's say just it doesn't work and he's just not back after this year, they can get out of it with only owing him $7.6 million. Then the final season is fully non-guaranteed. So if it becomes really messy, they can get out of that. Fultz next year, only $2 million of that $17 million is guaranteed. So the Magic have done a really nice job protecting themselves in these deals as well, because these are really talented players who you're perfectly happy to have. But if it doesn't work out, you can get out of those. So they're in a really good spot. I want to talk about Wendell Carter for a minute, just because that contract extension kicks in. There are a handful of people who I saw say like, "Wow, that's a lot of money. That's more than the mid-level." Well, by the end, because it's a descending contract, it'll be far less than the mid-level for Wendell Carter. This is a guy who last year, I know Trevor, I know you watch a lot. I don't guess you didn't even know this. He averaged a double-double last year. He averaged
Yeah, I wouldn't have
15 and
guessed
10.
that.
Yeah. 15 points, 10.5 rebounds, and not for nothing, a career high 2.8 assists, which is that's not a bad number for a big man who played on a team that was, to be fair and kind, we'll just say shooting challenged for large chunks of the year. Now, that is still a problem
It
for
is.
this team. Franz Wagner is probably the only guy you feel really good about as a shooter right now. So they're going to have to figure that out. If Banchero can extend that range out to the NBA 3-point line regularly, you're going to feel pretty good about that. Another reason why I really liked Banchero with this team, he's an offensive creator. He's a guy you can throw the ball to at his size that can actually make passes. We saw him off the dribble pick out shooters in the corner several times in summer league. Their game winner in that ridiculously bonkers Kings game that went to double overtime. It was Banchero making a pass off a double team to find a player for the game winning shot. So he can really pass the ball. Carter can pass the ball for a big man. So there's a lot of, I think, good stuff in here for this team to build around. It's just, are you going to get there with Jalen Suggs? They need him to be a lot better. And I think he will be. I think he just had that tough transition to the NBA. But this is a team, man. Maybe my adopted hometown pride is creeping in a little bit here, but I feel pretty good. One other thing I'll say too, that's not an off-season thing because it's an upcoming season thing. I'll be shocked if Terrence Ross is on this team past this year's trade deadline.
How many
After
years
2
have we
years,
been saying that for?
right? Tell me about it. Yeah, we're yeah, it's yeah, I was looking at that one 2 years ago when they traded everybody. I was like,
Yeah.
all right, Ross is next to go. And then I remember trade deadline ended and I put up the Will Smith meme where he's looking around at the empty living room and he's like Terrence Ross walking into the Magic locker room. And then last year I was convinced he'd be traded and he has not been yet. So they've made it clear they're not just going to give him away. Now that he's an expiring contract and he can just walk next
You
offseason,
kind of got to get whatever you can for
then
him.
I think it'll be, if worse comes to worse at the trade deadline, we can get a second round pick. All right, see you later, y'all. Off
Yeah.
you go. So, but yeah, man, I like it. I think they've got a lot of interesting combinations they can play, a lot of different ways that they can look at it. I think people have been asking me this a lot. I think they'll start Carter, Banchero, Wagner, Suggs. And then I flipped. I think it will be Fultz who starts there. And I think
Okay.
Cole Anthony will come off the bench behind him. But then behind them, it's going to be Bamba, Jonathan Isaac, Gary Harris, Cole Anthony, probably Chuma Okiki, maybe RJ Hampton. Hampton, disappointment, didn't look very good in summer league. He really kind of struggled. So we'll see if he can get it together. But, that's a lot of fun stuff, for the Magic. I mean, maybe this year you make a jump to 25 30 35 wins maybe on the high
Yeah.
end, and that's great. That's the step forward. It'd be really good for them if like they weren't fully out of things completely by the time you get to the trade deadline.
Sure.
That would be a step forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And they could certainly put together that kind of a run. And Terrence Ross, when you look down the list of the ages,
It
it's
stands out like a sore
yeah,
thumb,
oh
right?
yeah, 21, 24, 22, 21, 21, 24, 20, 31. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
he'll get moved, but
Right,
but
it's like our kids. Like, tell me about in the olden days, Papa
yeah,
Terrence.
that's what he's doing. Story time with Terrence
Right?
Ross.
Yeah. I
Um,
remember back when there was the old arena in here. It wasn't even the Amway Center,
Let me
right?
tell you kids something about Aaron Gordon and
Yeah.
the dunk contest.
Yeah, right. Did you guys know once I played for the Raptors and there were two teams in Canada?
Oh, poor Terrence Ross. But this team, this is very exciting. This is definitely going to be like in terms of my league pass teams to kind of make sure that I keep an eye on. This is going to be one of them. Definitely a team to check in on because I think they're going to be fun. I think they're going to be exciting, and I think they're building something here. You mentioned the shooting being a concern. I'm okay with that because right now it's just about finding the talent and finding the
Mhm.
pieces, and then you can sort of um, smooth things out later on with some other moves, additions, whether it's a trade, whether it's just adding in some guys, whatever you're going to do. Right now, it's about developing the talent that you've got, and even if that means that you're held back by a lack of shooting, that's okay. You're not trying to contend necessarily this year. You're looking at a few years from now.
And I think that becomes then a targeted need you can go fill if
Yeah,
you need to, where you can look at it and say, all right, you know what, we need to get a shooter in here that we can go just to round out the roster, and they'll have that ability. As it stands right now, I project them to have, well, let me pull it up, $31.7 million in cap space next offseason. So they'll be in the mix to go get kind of whatever they need. And you can probably, much like we saw the 76ers years ago when they were ready to turn it around, they overpaid JJ Redick, but they overpaid him for 1 year initially
Right.
on that first deal. That's where the Magic will be in position to do that. If they want to go get a shooter, they can then overpay that shooter for 1 or 2 seasons, because as long as you keep it short term, it's not really going to hurt you. So you'll be able to go do that. And that's great to have, because you're not looking at, are we going to fill out with $31 million? We've got to fill out 5 roster spots. I don't think they're going to be in that position.
No, definitely not. All right. I think that about wraps things up on the Orlando Magic. Pretty good offseason for them, and like what they're building here. But let us know your thoughts on the Magic and their future in the comment section down below. Did you like their offseason? And don't forget to subscribe to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Ring the notification bell. Follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.